Hello and welcome back to another Teamfight Tactics video. 9.17 just came out and it's time to return to the meta once again. We're here to guide you on all the changes that occurred this week so that you'll have an easier time adjusting to the new patch. Once you get a good understanding, be sure to check out our link below at ProGuides.com where we go further in depth on all the best builds, strategies, and winning mechanics. There's also many different courses produced by some of your favorite pro players to make you into the next best Teamfight Tactics player. Additionally, remember that all analysis on the patch are what the experts' predictions are, and not conclusive as the patch just released. So let's get started by going over the new mechanics that have been added. These are the ones that you might have missed while skimming over the patch notes. First, the first carousel will now only have 2 cost units. This won't exactly change anything for most players plat or above, as it's common knowledge to always start with a 2 cost unit. However, this might help lower elo folks out who have always prioritized getting an item at the cost of an extra gold. Second is that ghost armies benefit from synergy bonuses. This change is pretty large, and it's pretty important that you remember it. Ghost rounds are when there are an odd number of players and you face a copy of an opponent which is significantly weaker. Majority of the time, it's counted as a free round. Although not as crucial in the middle game, it becomes the key to becoming the top 4 when there's only 5 players left. This gives players more of a luck aspect to try to hope to get a ghost round. With trait bonuses finally added in, we expect the level of difficulty for ghost rounds to rise significantly, eliminating the lucky free round that players expect. Now let's go over what everyone is hyped for. The new champion, Pantheon, is finally out. He's a 5 cost unit whose origin is Dragon, and class is Guardian. It seems like we have finally found our ultimate tank unit. Pantheon's ability is Grand Starfall, where he will leap into the air and crash down on the farthest enemy. Similar to the rare champion Vi's mechanic. However, it is twice as strong. For comparison, a level 1 or 2 Vi's stun only lasts for 2 to 2.5 seconds. Now, Pantheon's stun will last you 4 seconds at level 1, which increases to 6 seconds at level 2. Additionally, anyone in that path will now take 15% damage of their maximum health as magic damage. Enemies will then burn an additional 20% of their maximum health as true damage over 10 seconds with Grievous Wounds applied. Grievous Wounds is the reduction of healing, which the only other factors in this game with this mechanic is Morelos and Red Buff. So a Mega CC tank that has Vi's mechanic twice as strong and has a Morelos built within his kit already? Can we ask for more here? His base health is also highest among all the legendaries, beginning with 1000 HP. But not only that, his base armor is also at 120. The highest armored legendary prior to this is Kale, who is starting at 40 armor. We expect Pantheon to be an extremely strong unit that most players will try to pick up immediately. With all the balances coming out on synergies, Pantheon will play a crucial part in adding a Guardian or Dragon composition. We recommend that you try to hold one of these other units that fit his synergy in the lucky scenario that you come across a Pantheon. However, he is a legendary unit, so like other 5 costs, you can't bank on RNG to hope that you'll be able to incorporate him in your every game. So if your economy allows it, then have a Leona or Aurelion as a backup, but overall, continue to play and focus on building a composition without him. Moving on, we've been expecting the meta to change greatly as well, because next up for the patch notes are synergy changes. Time to rebalance assassins once again. For anyone playing from the start of TFT, we know that the assassins have been through a lot. From the top of the meta, they went straight to the bottom as they got nerfed with their damage significantly. 3 assassins were still viable, but 6 assassins became a rare sight to be seen. This patch, Riot is trying to balance them back by adding critical strike chance to the synergy, but decreasing their damage once again. Assassins lost 50% crit damage but gained 10% crit chance at the first tier, and if you obtain all 6 units, they've lost 200% crit damage and gained 25% crit chance. We feel that this was an attempt to buff them, but overall feels fairly weak to us. Critical strike chance is strong, but the item Phantom Dancer, which negates critical damage, feels like it would become an even harder counter to the entire Assassin's build. However, if someone is running a Blademaster's, Rangers, or Gunslinger's composition without any Phantom Dancer, the Assassins should pose a large threat and crit their way to victory. We're excited to see how the Assassin synergy will play out. Now on to Hextech. Many players in the community have been asking for this synergy to be nerfed, as items are significantly powerful in the game. For an item destroyer to appear, it becomes a crucial key to winning if it RNGs on the right unit. Riot has now balanced the item destruction to last only 7 seconds instead of 8. There were also bug fixes that ultimately nerfed this synergy as well. Items like Ionic Spark, Locket of the Iron Solari, and Zeke Herald will re-enable their effects after the synergy is over. These were great balances and nerfs to Hextech, but not enough to change the tier of the synergy. As mentioned, with items so strong in the meta, we expect Hextech to continue to be highly valued in the game. So speaking of synergies that people want to nerf, next up is Nobles. Noble buff at first tier or second tier has just been too strong. Getting your Lucian, Garen, and Vayne at level 1 could end up beating another composition with level 2 units, even when it comes down to a 1 versus 3. The armor and magic resist have now been nerfed from 60 to 50, and healing from 35 to 25. We feel that this is a very fair balance. Nobles may not become so much of an instant win anymore, but with the right items on your Kayle, we feel this synergy will still be very strong, especially since there is a great buff to our next topic. Rangers are already one of the top compositions to be built. It's consistently been strong and not a synergy that players abused as much like they did with Nobles, Ninjas, or Gunslingers in the past. This patch might change that. Rangers now have an increased chance to double their attack speed from 25 and 65% to 30 and 70%. Not only that, the attack speed cap has been raised from 2.5 to 5. Have the right CC units to sustain your Rangers, and your Rangers can now go up to twice their max speed as before. So synergies that are rising up the ladder is not only Rangers, but also Shapeshifters. Shapeshifters overall will transform quicker. A wild Shapeshifter composition heavily relies on Nahr's and Shyvana's transformed abilities. Nahr's CC is one of the best in the game, and he also received a buff in the last 9.16 patch as well. As for Shyvana, if you stack the right items on her, like a Guardian Angel, Hextech Gunblade, and Guinsoo's Rageblade, she becomes the hyper carry of your team, killing everyone by herself. Shyvana also got her AI upgraded a bit, where she will look to jump much further away from her initial target. Additionally, Chase is a bit tankier with increased armor, and can transform, even equipped with Rapid Fire Cannon now, something that players were hoping to be able to do prior. We expect him to become a nice beefy unit that can push out substantial damage. Overall, Shapeshifter's got a significant advantage now that most units will transform quicker. Last but not least in our synergies list is Yordles. This is a slight buff that if you're able to get all 6 Yordles, you now have a 60% chance to dodge instead of 55%. Although a buff is nice, we don't expect them to be significantly stronger. Rapid Fire Cannon is too common of an item, and with a static Shiv on Rangers or a Void Sorcerer's comp, we expect Yordles to have difficulty winning to top 2. On to the champions. The most notable one is the buff on Lissandra. While Nivea was receiving only a 50 HP buff last patch, Lissandra is getting the HP plus extra damage. We're back at comparing this uncommon with a legendary. In most situations, as our challenger analysts would say, Nivea is still the preferred unit due to her AoE ability. If it lands in the right area, she is capable of outputting significantly more damage than Lissandra. However, Lissandra makes for a great substitute as she is easier to find for the Elementalist synergy. So even though Lissandra got a nice buff, this wasn't the case for Gangplank. Gangplank's ability damage has been nerfed significantly, losing 50 ability damage at level 1, 75 at level 2, and 100 at level 3. Although GP was never considered the most OP champion or carry, he is the only unit that is both a gunslinger and blade master, making him a highly valued unit to pick up in the composition. We expect that as a way to nerf both these compositions together, mitigating the insane amount of damage. However, like before, the true carry to Blade Masters is to have the right items on Draven, or with Gunslingers, Jinx. And lastly, some of the important notes on the smaller changes that occurred to champions are that Warwick received a 50 health buff, Leona's stun now lasts 1 second shorter at level 2, you can't abuse Graves as much with Rapid Fire Cannon as his bullets will become narrower, and Lucian's ability will now scale with his attack speed, and Ahri finally got a bit smarter and won't use her abilities on enemies out of range. Now onto the items. Morelos and Red Buff both received a nerf with a change in the Grievous Wounds mechanic. Grievous Wounds will no longer stop healing completely. Instead, it is an 80% reduction. Although this change is scary since these items were key to killing most hypercarries, Riot has also balanced out healing. Bloodthirster lost 10% of their healing, Hextech lost 8%, and Redemption lost 300 health regained. It's also important to note that Swain no longer heals as much either, going from 50 to 40 healing at level 1 and 90 to 70 at level 2. So at first glance, it might have been terrifying to hear that Grievous Wounds will not completely stop healing. However, with all the balances that come into play, we expect these items to still be crucial in stopping the enemy's team's carries from surviving indefinitely. And that's all for today. So how'd you guys feel about the new patch? We felt that overall, most balances were well made in today's patch. We expect Rangers and Shapeshifters to be much more popular than before, replacing people trying to RNG into Nobles. Be sure to let us know in the comments below on what you would like to see next, and how the new patches affected your games. As always, like and subscribe to our channel so you can keep up to date with all the new patches and meta changes. See you guys next time.